Let's talk about a couple of starts and sits for Week 13. My number one start of the week is Zach Moss. Zach Moss is already one of the best waiver wire pickups of the year, and I think he has a great chance to add to his run this week. It came as a surprise to everybody when the news came out that Jonathan Taylor suffered a thumb injury bad enough in the game last week to require surgery. So he's going to miss the next 2 to 3 weeks, and Moss should have a stranglehold over this number one job. Moss is the RB22 on the year in PPR, and this is actually pretty impressive. He missed the first week because he had a broken arm and he was still recovering from that. And then in the last 4 weeks, he's seen his snap share decrease significantly, going from 80 to 50 a couple of times, then 39, then 21, then bottoming out at 16 last week. And he's still the RB22 on the year, so that really doesn't do him justice. He had a stretch between week 2 and 8 when he was the RB4 in PPR, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him settle in around there this week and for whatever games he fills in for Jonathan Taylor. The Colts have the 10th most rushing attempts this year with 313, and Moss is averaging a healthy 4.8 yards per carry, and he has 6 touchdowns, 5 on the ground and 1 through the air. And this week he gets the Titans, who have a middle-of-the-pack rush defense, so I think he has a good chance to add to his touchdown total and should be heavily involved in the game plan. My next start of the week is Rachaad White. Rachaad White is quietly the RB6 in PPR this year. He's had a pretty stable but somewhat low floor in PPR this year, and he's been really dependent on the receiving game, and I think if he wants to maintain value this week, he's going to have to do the same against Carolina. Carolina allows the 9th most rushing yards per game, and they allow the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs on the year. Even though White is averaging an ugly 3.6 yards per carry, he does have a lot of things going for him. He has the 4th highest snap percentage amongst all running backs in the league, and he also has the 3rd most receptions amongst all running backs with 43. So he has a great matchup this week, and he's coming off of his first 100-yard game of the season. So he's going to come into this game with a lot of confidence, and I think he has a great chance to produce, especially with how big his workload is. Moving over to sits, my first sit of the week is Diontae Johnson. Johnson has had a very strange week, and he's also had a very strange year. Starting off with the year, he began the year getting injured in the first week, and then went on IR for 4 weeks, and then he came back, and things were looking pretty good, and then we had a change at OC, and ever since then, things have been a little bit strange. Even leading up to it, things were a little bit strange. In the last 3 games, he's averaged a meager 3.9 fantasy points per game. And going back to last week, he first put a really bad play on tape when he looked disinterested when there was a live ball on the ground, and then after the game, apparently he got into an argument with Mika Fitzpatrick, so he's had a strange week. I could see Mike Tomlin maybe putting him in the doghouse, and even if he's not, I feel like he's too difficult to trust. He does get a healthy 7 targets per game, but Kenny Pickett has not put it together this year. I should mention that Johnson did miss practice today with an illness. It doesn't seem very serious, and he should suit up. This week they get Arizona, which is a good matchup, but like I mentioned, I think he's just a little too difficult to trust at this point. My last sit of the week is Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is the WR21 on the year in PPR. That is not what we expected when we drafted him in the 2nd round. And I think, unfortunately, his fate is not going to turn this week. Even though he's getting an absurd 10 targets per game, those targets are not very high quality. And this week, Tim Boyle's going to be throwing him the ball. So even if he does get a large amount of volume, I don't think it's going to equate to production. The Jets play the Atlanta Falcons, who allow the 10th fewest passing yards per game, and I can see this being a run-heavy game script, a Breece Hall versus a Bijan Robinson type game. And until the Jets can prove that they can score touchdowns in somewhat of a consistent fashion, I think Wilson is treated as a low-end WR3 at best. Those are a couple of starts and sits for Week 13. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know who you think we should start or sit in the comments below.